back to Whiteboard Wednesday. This is part 3 in my 5-part series, How to Manage Salespeople. And the topic today stems from something that I brought up in my last video. And that really is creating closed loop communication, creating follow-up, and having a means to check in on or understand how people are following through and succeeding or failing on the expectations you set. And another way to think about that is, how do you ensure accountability with your team? How do you ensure that you hold people accountable? Because we all know that if you don't manage accountability and you can just let people wave in the wind, we don't always get the results that we want. So I wanted to talk today about a framework for holding individuals accountable. That's really what this is. Now, a little quick note on that. I guess a lot of companies and sales managers or sales leaders have the misguided notion that accountability should be something that individuals manage for themselves. Why can't people hold themselves accountable? And to a large extent, you can create a culture of accountability where individuals are motivated to hold themselves accountable. But at the end of the day, the fundamental reason we have sales management as a function is because individuals require management. Individuals require somebody to either help them or guide them, or in some cases, force them to accomplish what we've asked them to do. And that takes place in all areas, not just in work, but in our personal lives. That's the reason we get a trainer. And it's not about being lazy necessarily or not having the tools. It's just a fundamental component of the human experience that if we have folks who can hold us accountable, we're far more likely to accomplish the goal. So I wanted to give you a paradigm for holding folks accountable. And the way I want you to think about it is, the individual is starting out, sorry for the size here, but when people start out, absent a management framework, a management context, we'll draw a little hat, make it like a business person of some sort. You got to think about it this way. I think about, they've got a really wide, that's not quite 180 degrees, but they've got a really wide field of vision. Let's call it, in the 160 degree range, right? That is very broad and very unfocused. Success, as we all know, requires focus, right? And focus fundamentally is defined as a narrower band of vision, right? Focusing on, and these are not exact scientific measures, but moving from 160 degrees field of vision and where we spend our time and our energy, moving this way is hard. It's hard for individuals to drive focus, but focus is, we all acknowledge yields success. So this is where management comes in, is helping the individual focus their attention, their efforts, their activities, reform habits, toward the desired result. So I absolutely believe that management is a requirement in any successful organization, and holding people accountable is something that managers are not all that good at doing, to be honest with you. So let's talk about the framework for establishing individual accountability. And really the first level is not all that complicated, and it's very much what we talked about in our previous video. You need to set the expectation, right? In a formal way, right? Not in an informal way. What does formal mean? Well, formal means typically in the context of a meeting that's on my calendar, right? Formal typically means that there's got to be some sort of written follow-up, acknowledgement on both sides that this is something we're really going to do. You've all heard the term, I'm positive, of how you define expectations or goals, and the typical acronym used is SMART, right? Which includes specific, I think they use it different. So SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable. The A stands for achievable, and the R stands for realistic. I personally don't really worry too much about those, but I do care about the third, which is time-bound. So if your goals are, your expectations are specific, measurable, time-bound, if they take place in the context of a scheduled conversation, and if they are followed up with something formal and written, regardless of who's writing that, then you're well on your way to holding folks accountable, and you've got a good baseline. Let's talk about the next level, really, which we kind of touched on before, and that is make sure you've got scheduled check-in and due date, right? And I really think the check-in is important because of any project, if let's just say we're dealing with something that's going to take approximately 2 weeks to complete. If you get to the end of 2 weeks and there are either serious challenges with or outright failure with respect to the project, that's not only going to burn a lot of time, it's going to create an awful lot of bad feelings on both sides, a lot of frustration. And that's not going to help anybody. That's going to get emotions high and create resistance and create a lot of tension, which is going to not help us with our goal of creating that focus. One of the real challenges that I think managers have is they set an expectation and they expect that person to just follow through with it. I'm going to put something down here which I think is probably pretty controversial, but I really believe in it. You need to expect failure, at least partial failure, right? And again, failure tends to be an emotionally laden word, right, in terms of, well, it's bad, but failure could be from a lot of things. Failure could be from a lack of clear direction. Failure could stem from things that are totally external to the individual's control, but failure is part of the learning process. So if I expect failure and then I have a scheduled check-in, and a framework to course correct with that individual, I'm going to be less likely to get frustrated and upset. Passing somebody in the hall and asking, 3 weeks after I requested something, hey, how's that coming along? And hearing that, well, I'm not making the progress I thought, doesn't make anybody happy and gets everybody sort of instantly tense. Okay, so there's kind of the high level. Let's talk about what happens when we are at our first check-in and we've expected some sort of failure, right? Have you ever given somebody that works for you a task, followed up a week later and found that it hasn't actually been done? Shocking, right? Well, pretty much happens all the time. If I'm giving somebody an assignment, I need you to make 60 calls a day for the next week. We're going to check in on Monday. Here's a little secret. I don't actually expect them to do it. I want them to do it. I really hope they will, but management experience has taught me that we're going to have to go through this process because we're talking about changing behavior. So I'm expecting in my first check-in to have a miss of some sort. And this is my first miss. So here's how we deal with it. First, let's ask ourselves, what happened, right? Why did that person miss? Did they ignore me? Are they being insubordinate? No, probably not. Most likely when we sit down, I say, so how's it going? And I'll get from them, well, it didn't really get done, or I didn't get all the calls in that I thought. My question is going to be, well, what happened? And the answer is, I got busy, right? I just got busy. Shocker, right? Well, what do we do about it? How do we handle that? And we're going to talk about this in terms of our first intervention. Right? First intervention, when I have our miss, is going to be, I'm going to help them manage their time. Right? Because they got busy, they were unable to complete the task in the allotted time, etc., etc. So what I'm going to ask them to do is, again, carry the deliverable or the expectation over to the next week. However, because they were not able to complete it, I'm going to ask them to block out specific time in their calendar and show me, send me a screenshot or just show me at some point that they've got time in the calendar to get this done. This could be for prospecting time. This could be, I want you to block an hour a day to make some calls. This could be if you find that your folks are not updating their pipeline reports prior to your meeting and you're spending your pipeline time going through close dates that are past due and records that aren't updated. So now I need you the day before our pipeline meeting to block an hour and a half in your calendar, specific amount of time to get this done, right? So that's a concept of how we're going to help them manage their time. So the second miss, right, because we're going to set another meeting, we're coming back the next week, and guess what? All will not be perfectly done. There will be either no progress or minimal progress, or there'll still be mistakes. So we have to expect this, right? What happened, right? I'm confused, might the conversation go, because we talked about it, you needed to do it, you even put time in your calendar. How did that happen? Well, I had it on my calendar, but something came up, right? I hear it all the time. Something came up, I had the time on my calendar, but a key customer called, and I had to take the call, etc., etc. We've all heard this before, right? So what do? I'm running out of paper here, but that's okay. Second intervention, right? The next week. I'm going to stop here for a second. You may be looking at this saying, well, this is an awful lot of work. I got a lot of steps I got to take, and shouldn't people just be able to figure it out on their own? No, silly. That's why you're a manager. That's why there is a management function. However, if we take a structured and progressive approach to managing their compliance, if you will, to helping them focus in this area, then A, we stay sane, B, we have a much higher probability of achieving the desired results because we're shifting behavior over time, and C, if it does come down to needing to take more drastic action, up to including termination or other penalties, we're very well justified in that. We feel like we've done everything in our power to be make that successful. So what is our second intervention? And I call that lightweight oversight, right? Every salesperson wants to throw the flag of, why are you micromanaging me? I don't want to be micromanaged. Well, I haven't done any micromanaging up to this point. Here, what I'm going to do is say something like, hey, I understand things come up. Here's what I'm going to do to help you be successful and learn to manage your time better. I want you to hold that calendar slot. However, at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that same calendar slot on my calendar, and I'm going to check in with you at that point to make sure that you're actually doing it. So I'm going to make sure that you're sitting at your desk at 1 o'clock on Tuesday to do your pipeline updates for the pipeline meeting on Wednesday. Now we get to 5. We get to the third miss. Probably not believing it at this point, right? Really? 3 weeks in a row, something's going to happen? And what does the miss look like? Well, they were not at their desk. It was on the calendar. I called them up. They were doing something else. Yikes. What happened? Well, once again, they got busy. What you're hopefully seeing here is we're actually dealing with a very simple issue, and that is time management. And we all are challenged with time management. We put things on our calendar, they don't get done. The urgent overtakes the important all day long. This is not unfamiliar territory for us, or at least shouldn't be. So, not at their desk, right, or some other deviation of that. When we get to the third intervention, I refer to this as heavyweight or onerous oversight. Now we're starting to get serious here. Actually, we're more than serious. Heavyweight oversight might sound something like this. Hey, you know, I really understand you're busy, you got those clients, you're closing deals, but keeping your pipeline updated is really important to the organization, really important to forecasting. It has to get done, and I understand with everything going on, you're really struggling to manage your time. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up some special time for you and I to make sure this gets done. And what we're going to do is, well, let's start with 3 times a week. You and I will block 45 minutes or half an hour or even 15 minutes to personally walk through your pipeline and make sure the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, make sure all your records are up to date in Salesforce. And we're going to do that, let me see. Let's plan on this coming Sunday at 8 a.m. How about Wednesday at 7:30 at night? And you know, we can also do, I'm in here early on Mondays. Why don't we do Monday at about 5:30? And I really want you to be successful. I want to help you. You may want to mess with those dates because that's 2 separate ones there. But if you get the concept here, I'm going to make life very uncomfortable for you. I'm going to create significant motivation for you to get with the program. Now, a couple things here. What if the person balks? Well, it's not really optional. I don't want to meet on Sunday. Well, neither do I, but this hasn't worked, and it has to get done. Well, give me one more chance. Hey, this is not kindergarten. We've gone through this exercise. We're going to try this for a week, and then we'll see if you can kind of stick to the program. Another thing I hear a lot from sales managers is, well, that's a lot of work for me. Well, sure it is, and I don't want to be meeting at 8 o'clock, and I don't want to be meeting at 7:30, but I'm going to smile about it and act like I do. Because I know it's going to change the behavior. And I would rather go through a week of pain to get this person on track compliant than have the same dysfunctional and unproductive conversation, week over week over week. I'll give you a couple of other specifics here. If you miss one of these meetings, well, that's going to be grounds for termination because we've gone through a lot of different attempts here to get the situation working right. So these are not going to be optional. They're going to be mandatory. They're going to be painful. And we're going to stop doing these just as soon as I feel that you, as somebody who I care about and want to make sure you're successful, has fully grasped the way to do this and the need to do this, etc. So we'll catch you tomorrow night at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and we'll get all this done. So I hope this is helpful. This is a very structured and frankly I would say very simple framework for holding people accountable. It does require that you're organized. It does require that you're good at setting follow-up conversations. It does require that you stick to the plan. A couple videos from now, I'm actually going to give you and draw out for you a tool, a template that I use to manage all this crap at the individual level. So hopefully that'll be helpful as well, because if you're managing 4, 5, 8, 10 people, even though this is simple, it can get confusing and you need to know where you are in the process. So we'll give you something to help with that. Hope this has been interesting and helpful and helps you create accountability, personal accountability, and change behaviors and drive focus in your team. As always, look forward to your questions and comments, and thanks for watching.